Alright, guys, we are here. It is time for the predictions for the play-ins, but also the entire playoffs. So, how I'm going to do this is I'm going to do my predictions for the play-ins, and then I'm going to just fill out the whole bracket. You've probably seen this from some other content creators. It's been going on. The Gigabrain bracket creators, really nice. So shout out, of course, to this person, um, because this is pretty clutch. So, like I said, I'm going to do predictions for everything. However, this is all conjecture, obviously, at this point. So, after the playoffs are set, I'm planning on then doing updated predictions based on what's actually there in the quarters, the semis, and then the finals. And the same thing with the losers brackets as well. So, I thought that made more sense because you guys can see how I feel going into the playoffs, but then obviously a lot of things can change. And these predictions that I have now, a lot of them could definitely be way off. So then once we get a bit closer, with the teams that we have left, then I can make new predictions. So hopefully you guys are excited for that. We were pretty much going to just jump right in with predictions. So starting today, we got the matches between the Guangzhou Charge and Chengdu Hunters, and then the Philadelphia Fusion and Shanghai Dragons. So, between the Charge and the Hunters, I think this is an interesting game because on paper, especially with last meta, you would assume, okay, Charge are going to win this one pretty easily. They've looked a lot better in this meta, but again, we have the Sigma patches out now, so we don't exactly know how the meta is going to behave, per se, so maybe Chengdu is very good in this. I still would favor the Charge here. Nero is playing at a very high level. Happy has absolute carry potential. I think they have one of the most underrated front lines in the entire game in Rio and Hotba. And then their supports have been really solid all season as well. They're hitting their stride, and even though the meta has changed, I think it'll be somewhat similar. I don't see it changing too much from last meta, so we should still see some very good play from them. I think they are a contender going forward because I think a lot of people would say they're a top 3 team in the last meta, and I think that they should be able to swap to the other one with relative ease. The Hunters are always a wild card though, so they could definitely give the Charge a fight here. They have pop off potential in their DPS, but because they can't really play to their strengths right now, they can't really play ball in this meta because he's just going to get slowed and stunned and just destroyed and get no value. So, with that being said, I like the Charge here. I think that they get it done. And of course, if the Charge win, that automatically will put them in with the Dynasty in the long run. You'll see once I pick between the Fusion and the Dragons. So, two teams that have really stumbled into the playoffs in my eyes, Fusion and Dragons. I'm gonna go with the Fusion here. They've at least shown flashes. That I still we'll see if there's the old Philly magic. Last year they slinked into the playoffs as the number 6 seed. They obviously went all the way to the grand finals. However, they beat Boston, who had been looking weaker and weaker that whole pretty much all of stage 4 last season. And it was kind of similar with New York. New York didn't really adjust to the new meta, and it was really well suited for Philly. And of course, we have the New York choking problems. So that being said, I'm going to go with the Fusion here, but I don't feel great about them going forward. I really don't think that they're going to make a deep run at all this year, but I still like them more than Dragons right now. Dragons look absolutely terrible. They look lost. Could this new meta save them? Maybe, but ever since 222 has been introduced, they've been really bad, and I think that their DPS compositions don't really work for it. The one saving grace for Dragons fans, potentially, if we see a lot of Doomfist, they have Youngjin, who's a very good Doomfist player. So could he come in and really turn the tide for them? Potentially. But I'm gonna go with Philly here. I think they get it done in a decently close match. But I think that Philly is in better shape right now. They have looked really mediocre, but Dragons have looked really bad, and I don't see them turning it around right away with this new patch. So in the semifinals of the play-ins, the two winners of here, make it into the overall playoffs. I think Spitfire win with ease. We've been hearing good things about them when it comes to their Sigma play. Of course, that is just scrim. You don't want to put too much value in the scrim bucks, but I still think that you're going to see playoff Spitfire. A lot of their players have still performed well, but I think you probably get some bounce back performances from guys like Bedosian and Gesture who haven't quite lived up to their stellar reputations. So I like Spitfire way more here. We haven't seen bad Spitfire in the playoffs. They've been a very clutch team. This season it was made pretty well known. The broadcasters brought this up at least a couple of times about how Spitfire lost a ton of fights in overtime. So we'll see if that comes back to bite them. But I think that they're easily better than Fusion, and they take one of the top 8 spots. And I went back and forth with this one a lot between the Dynasty and the Charge. I'm gonna go with the Charge. I really wanted to send Dynasty through with that. That's like the storied franchise. There's a lot to like about them, but I just think Charge are playing better now. They have more momentum, and like what I've talked about before, I love their DPS duo. Dynasty have really changed up their roster so much that I feel like they've never really, especially towards the end of the year, which is the most important, they haven't really found that good that good momentum, the good karma where you're just feeling good and playing really well and just super comfortable with each other as teammates. I don't see that from them, so I'm going to go with the Charge here, grabbing that final spot. So as you can see, those would line up matches between Titans and Charge, Spark and Gladiators, Excel and Spitfire, and then Shock and Rain. So in this upper half, again, Charge have been playing better, but I did like what I saw from the Titans the last couple of times out. The Charge have pushed them to close maps in the past this season, but the Titans have always been able to clutch it out. And I see a competitive series here, but I see the Titans winning. I feel like they have a better grasp of the meta now. They played well against New York, even with some experimenting almost lineups. And I think they're going to come out even stronger in the playoffs themselves. So I don't see them falling down to the losers bracket here, but I think it might honestly be a harder fight than their next match. But like I said, I like the Titans' clutch up ability, and I think that they will fend off the Charge and send them to the losers bracket. Then we got Spark and Gladiators. So Spark, this one was really tough for me because the Spark are 2-0 against Gladiators. But Gladiators have been together longer. The Spark have had some stage fright issues. Stage fright could definitely hit you now in the overall playoffs again. The Gladiators, I generally feel, are well coached and they adapt to metas quickly. The Spark do not adapt to metas quickly. But in all of their playoff matches, whether it's stage playoffs or overall playoffs, in the now 2 years of Overwatch League, they are 0-4 in those. They've never won a match in the stage playoffs or last year's overall playoffs. They lost to Spitfire immediately. So there are red flags here for both teams. I'm going to go with Gladiators just because of the veteran. They have a lot of veterans, and I think that approach is going to do wonders for them. I think that we could see Hydration come out and play a very good Sigma and kind of throw a lot of stuff out of whack, because I do think Gladiators' weakest point is their front line in Roar and Void. Gladiators have such a good support line, and their DPSs have some of the highest potential in the whole league. So I'm gonna edge with the Gladiators here, but this match could definitely go either way. Like I said, I'm gonna go with the experience to win out in this one. Then between New York and Spitfire, I like the Spitfire here. New York still hasn't impressed me. Again, when it comes to playoffs, Spitfire have such a better track record. I think they'll be a little bit quicker to adapt to the meta. I like their DPS line more than New York's as well. A good point that I saw when I was watching some podcasts and people talking about OWL was the fact that there is probably going to be more Moira play. and Jonak's carry potential goes way down on Moira as opposed to Zenyatta or Ana. So I see Spitfire winning this one. I will it be pretty close? I think New York will give them a bit of a run, at least take a map. But I definitely trust the Spitfire more in this situation. A really interesting one next. You got San Francisco Shock against Atlanta Reign. So these are two teams playing very, very well going into the playoffs. I'm going to go with San Francisco. They still look like the best team in the league, but I think it could be argued that Atlanta was probably the second best team in the league in the Stage 4 meta. They went undefeated, and they looked really solid. Erster was looking like an absolute carry, and the team they've really, really gelled together. They really, you can tell that they like each other, and they're playing better because of that. But again, San Francisco looks so fucking good. Best team in the league. I think that keeps up. They have so many talented players that I think that they'll be able to adapt to the new meta very quickly, and they have shown a great ability to clutch after Stage 1. In Stage 1, they had a lot of close matches against the best teams in the league, but they just couldn't pull them out. Like they barely lost to Gladiators. They barely lost to, I believe it was Spitfire in that first regular season. They barely lost to Titans in the Stage 1 finals. But then since then they've really learned how to clutch up. They won Stage 2 and they've won a lot of close matches. Like last week they edged out the Titans. They've done the same thing against Gladiators now. So I like Shock moving on here, even though Atlanta puts up a great fight. So looking at the losers bracket between the Charge and the Spark, again I think this one could go either way. I'm gonna go with the Charge. I think that in terms of the tank lines, they kind of cancel out. And I think tank lines won't be quite as important in this meta, especially as they were in the first three. And Spark's best player is Gushue, their main tank. So I think he's going to have a few less chances to carry, and I think that will reflect in the stat line. In the end, I just trust Charge's DPSs more at this point. I think that's the weak point of the Spark for me. As well as their flex support, Bebe he's been good. Like I don't think he's been like weighing them down, but I just don't see like the carry potential that a lot of the flex supports have in the league. And I think that Shu on the Charge does have that. So we should have a great competitive match. These two teams have scrimmaged against each other a lot this season, so they know each other very well. But I'm gonna go with the Charge to edge this one out. And then between Excel and Rain. Rain have beaten Excel twice already. I'm actually gonna go for, I guess, an upset here. I think that New York beats the Rain. The meta change I think will help them. I've seen emergence from guys like Flower, and Libero is always super solid. I think that New York's. I'm going to go out on a limb. I think they don't choke this time. I think that there's tanks come to play. I think that they just have a good match here. I think that with their backs up against the wall, with it being the double elimination instead of last year where they were just they cruised into the playoffs and then were kind of just shell-shocked when they started losing in the playoffs. I think now that they've struggled, like legitimately struggled in the year, I think that will actually help them come into the playoffs with a little bit of a better mindset, and they'll be ready to go. So I'm going to take Atlanta in a very close one, though, because Atlanta looked like they're a better team towards the end of the season, for sure. But I think the meta change will slow them down a little bit, and we're going to see some pop-offs from XL DPS to carry them to a victory. So, winners bracket semifinals. We got Titans going against Gladiators. I'm a bit of a homer, but not that much of a homer. I got the Titans here. Again, Gladiators they've played some close matches against the top teams. They did barely beat the Shock, and they beat New York in the regular season, but they also lost to Vancouver twice. They lost to Spitfire, they did beat Spitfire 3-2, just barely. On their second play. But they've also lost to Shock recently. They beat Shock the first time, but that was a very long time ago in a different meta. They've been pretty competitive, but they haven't been able to beat like a very upper tier teams. And I still like the Titans more than them here. Like I said, they just win fights. They just win fights that the fights that could go either way. Because there's going to be fights where the Titans just get ults and they win, and they should, and there's going to be fights where the Gladiators do it. But the ones that are in the middle, where like both teams get a pick or two, or ults are really even on both sides, I just like the Titans' ability to take those. I also don't love a couple of the maps for Gladiators, and Titans have been really solid on basically every map. I mean, they went 25-3, so I like the Titans here. I think that they beat Gladiators. I think it'll be pretty close, but it'll be pretty apparent that Titans have a bit of an edge on them. And then between the Spitfire and the Shock, I'm gonna roll with the Shock here. Like I said, Spitfire apparently are doing really well, but I need to see it. And I think that the Shock, because they're so well coached and because their talent level is so high, that they'll be okay in this matchup. Um, they've been so consistent. Spitfire, they have their super high highs, but they have their low lows. So I think even throughout a match, there's going to be some up and downs. But San Francisco, they've been just rock solid. Their tank line, their support line, their coaching is so steady and so good from Krusty that I'm going to take them to win this match. I would think that one's going to be very, very close though. If the Spitfire play like I think they will. So then, looking at losers bracket round 2, that would set up a Gladiator XL match and then a Spitfire Charge match. So I'm going to go Spitfire here. Again, for all the reasons I've highlighted earlier. The Charge, a lot of the reasons I picked the Charge here are because I just think their DPS duo will be able to just put them over the top, but I don't think they'll be able to do that against Prophet and Birdring. So how everything else shakes out, I like London more. I like Guangzhou a lot, but I think this is the end of the road for them. I think this is kind of their max distance in the playoffs, which would still be a very good season for them to, make the playoffs after such a rocky start. I'll say they had a 22 match or map lose streak. So they had some real rough times, and to come back and win a match in the playoffs, I think would be great for them. But I see Spitfire moving on, and then Gladiators Excel again. It's like, oh, which Gladiators do we get? Which Excel do we get? These are two teams that have struggled in the playoffs. I'm gonna edge Gladiators here. I think that New York, even though I have them clutching out against the rain, I feel like Gladiators have just been more steady. I think this meta lends more in favor of them. We've seen Surefour and Decay getting really hot recently. So I feel like they have a bit more momentum on their side, and they still will going forward. Especially if they do win their first match against the Spark. So I like the Gladiators in that one, but for me, that one is so close. Two teams that have been very successful in the regular season have had their playoff struggles, but as a whole right now, I just like Gladiators more. I just don't think Excel is that good. I don't think their ceiling is what it was in Season 1. So, looking at the winners finals, we got Titans and we got Shock. I like the Shock in this one. I think they're even better than Titans, in terms of pretty much everything right now. I like their front line more. I like their DPS more. I like their coaching more, and I like their supports more. It's pretty much. I think that Titans will still keep it close. These are two teams that have that rivalry. You can already see it. So I think Titans give them a great fight, probably a better fight than they should, but Shock are able to close it out just because of their higher skill ceiling. And like I said, Krusty, they got that good coaching. And between Spitfire and Gladiators, I got Spitfire moving on. Playoffs. It's playoffs, and it's at this point, it's who do you trust more? And I definitely trust the Spitfire more than the Gladiators. I'm not gonna go out on that limb for Gladiators at this point. I think Spitfire are one of the clutchest teams in the history of Overwatch. So they're gonna move on to the losers finals, and then I got Spitfire winning again. I think they're gonna kind of run away with it. I think Titans there's gonna be some panic there if they get behind early on. I think there's real possibility for panic there, and Spitfire kind of roll through with that. Like I said, I think Jester's just going to have a phenomenal playoffs run. I think Profit's going to be as good as he always was. I think that Bedosian's going to have a resurgence, and if that happens, this team's going to be so hard to stop. So, Shock Spitfire, I'm going with the Shock. They've been the I think overall, at least since stage one, they've been the best team in the league. They're the only team to make every stage playoff finals. Um, they have such a hard road to the playoffs. They'd have to beat the Spitfire twice if this is correct, but I feel like they're just gonna feed off of it. This is a team that they have players who have always been super talented when it comes to like Sinatra, when it comes to Super, Rascal, but there were always issues because of mentality issues, wrong fit in a team, and I feel like they finally found that perfect fit for the team. Smurf has been so good filling in for Super. Chayobin has to be top 3 underrated players in the entire league. Violet and Moth is such a good back line. I just see this team they're just going to keep moving forward. Teams are going to give them great fights. I think Atlanta, Spitfire, and Titans will all make it hard for them, but in the end, Shock are going to clutch out. I think that they've probably been practicing the new meta for a bit. They're going to be great at it, and they're going to convert it into a championship. And if we think about where San Francisco was last year, it's really crazy. Their management has done such a good job in laying the groundwork, like really capitalizing on it this offseason by bringing in some great new players and a great new coach. They added him, I believe, in stage 4 of last year. But I think it's gonna all pay off for them, and they're going to dethrone the Spitfire and become grand champs of Overwatch League Season 2. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I tried to rip through them because there's a lot of fucking matches. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any big disagreements, if you have anybody going super far that I have getting knocked out earlier, because I'm curious to see what your takes are on these. And then, yeah, it's tonight. Tonight the play-ins start, and then by next week we're going to be getting into the quarterfinals. So I'm so excited. I hope you guys are as well. Have yourselves a fantastic couple of days, and then I'll see you in the next one.